right onto our guest co-host today, who is from C3. Now, C3, a B Corp certified impact platform that accelerates entrepreneurs and organizations through innovation, investment, and, of course, purpose-driven collaborations. He's also the CEO of Venturebeam. Please welcome Kevin Holliday. Kevin, really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Important subject for us all. I know it's something that you live, work and breathe on a daily basis as well. But I suppose, this has come into the consciousness of so many more people in recent years. Policy, we know, has been in place for many, many years. UN's been working tirelessly towards it with its goals. COP28 was a huge success. It was in our face. We saw the success. We saw the results every single day. We see the strategies put in place here. With all that momentum going forward, I'll go back to that sort of point I made a bit earlier on. Are we seeing the results we should be seeing?
I firmly believe there is definitely momentum building off the back of COP, and over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a little bit more of that sort of passion, ambition turning into action on the ground. We're seeing a lot of startups now wanting to enter the green tech space because of these very conducive policies, the direction from the UAE as a whole, and also the ability to be able to actually start up a company in an area where UAE is potentially positioned as a test bed to then scale out to the other regions, and other countries are very close by. And also we're in a hot climate, and there's an ability to be able to actually see what conditions may be like in the future. So some of those conditions where water scarcity, for instance.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you, if you look at some of the successful founders today, they're not just building cool tech, but they're also solving real world problems. So if you could advise some of the billionaires out there, the Musks, the Bezos, on tackling some of these real world problems, what would you say are at the top three at the moment?
Yeah, so when it comes to actually these types of solutions, there is an ingrained mission that is very central to what they want to achieve, and the purpose is very driven by that mission. So there's a natural alignment when it comes to tackling challenges, being able to deploy, run quickly, being agile on the ground. And these startups have a huge resilience when it comes to building sustainable solutions for the future. And I think specifically around energy efficiency, water scarcity, we're seeing a lot more solutions moving into that, and the investors are starting to see that these companies are actually driven by a profit with a purpose.
Now, I was reading this article about one of the major challenges for green tech companies is to actually start to get, because it's quite a cost, isn't it, to kick it off. So what is your advice to these people, these founders, when it comes to aligning both environmental value and being a business that can actually earn? How can they encourage more investors?
Yeah, so with the obviously advancement in technologies that are starting to really take off, there is always an element of hardware typically with an environmental solution, and using that and leveraging the technology to place and bring that to life is something where now we're seeing a lot more solutions being able to embed AI or actually retrofit to be able to then take it to the next level. There is a little bit of patient capital needed from an investor's perspective, because it might not always see the returns in the first instance, but ultimately they're trying to tackle the world's biggest challenges. So ultimately, towards the end, there will be that natural growth. It's just that early part where the attracting from investors, where we've been through a lot of free capital, a lot of sexy platforms when it comes to SaaS and these types of things that are out there. And now we're just starting to see a little bit of shift in momentum where investors are seeing that this is a viable way of deploying capital.
Founders getting that sort of response here. We talked about, how Dubai, the UAE, could be a pretty unique space in terms of, that pool of capital that we're seeing. The flexibility in the infrastructure that government are putting in place in terms of visas, bringing more and more founders and startups here as well. Have they got all the ingredients they need to take these cool solutions to the next stage?
Yeah, I firmly believe that. I think there is now a natural path for startups from an early stage to think about how they can enter the growth stage and then potentially look at the larger picture as they go through. There are parts that still need to be looked at, but the public-private potential collaboration is a big driver of how corporates can potentially leverage startups as an innovation platform, as well as ticking sustainability goals from an entrepreneurship lens. So there is a lot of value in bringing those two together to really piece together the ecosystem.
I want to go back to what Ash was asking you earlier, something about cool tech, right? Well, there are a lot of cool tech that's coming out. What do you think is getting more attention? Is it the ones that are, say, nature-based, or those that are more about AI optimization?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that the nature-based solution is obviously something that resonates a lot with people in general, because you can see obviously from a food perspective and a water perspective how we're actually going to feed the planet in the next few years, and how we can secure that from a perspective of food and water. So there is some incredible solutions that are being born from nature, and looking at some of the specific challenges we have, and we're feeling it now as a human race in terms of some of the natural disasters, the heating, the warming of the climate. So I think it's just a natural progression for someone to maybe start to think about it from a nature perspective. But the technology that is then embedded, and some of the latest stuff is really propelling those solutions. So I think it's either side, and we're seeing a bit of a mix in general.
Kevin, we're hearing a lot about climate resilience as an investment theme. What does it actually look like in the context of the UAE?
Yeah, so I alluded to in terms of around, obviously we're in a climate where it's a little bit further than when we see from an external perspective around the region itself in terms of being subjective to heat. The climate resilience part is all built around trying to embed and see what the solutions might be in the future when we're subjective to potentially more heat, less water, etc. And building ultimately the foundations for a business to become much more resilient out there is something that we specifically, both on the Venturebeam and the C3 side, try to instill into founders in terms of how they can demonstrate that resilience to further their progress.
Going to end our little chat here, but we're going to keep you on as guest co-host, obviously, and we've got some great guests joining us in just a few moments' time to add to the conversation. But a good old DXB Today favourite question, the why Dubai question as well. I know I sort of alluded to it a little earlier on, but if someone's calling you, Kevin, they're asking for a bit of free consultancy, we love a bit of free consultancy, and saying, yeah, someone said I should bring my idea to Dubai, but I've looked at the temperatures, I've looked at the environment, etc. Why Dubai for investors, but also would-be founders coming here with good ideas?
Yeah, I think Dubai and the UAE has positioned itself extremely well in the last 5 years, specifically around having an ecosystem that is actually speaking to every part of that ecosystem, whether it be from a national agenda, policymakers, academia, startups, corporates. It's all coming together in an environment that absolutely helps propel and feeling that there is stuff moving. I think from a startup perspective, coming here is an amazing test bed as a potential to see and get back feedback from a very diverse population, and then see how that potentially then goes out to scale in the other potential countries around the region. So Dubai has definitely done a really good job of positioning itself when it comes to the startup environment. And also talent is a big part. There's a lot of new talent coming here, specifically on technology and on the climate side as well.
Well, Kevin, I'm glad that you're here with us, because we're surely going to use your insights later on when we flesh out all the conversations with our guests. So